London is a city admired for its history, culture, and global influence. But beneath its familiar landmarks lies a far more complex financial story, one that has quietly shaped the world for decades. Understanding why London became the world's tax haven capital means examining centuries of legal evolution, empire building, financial deregulation, and political choices that together formed a vast, offshore web that still shapes global wealth today. London's transformation began long before modern banking existed. When the Bank of England was founded in 1694, it established a stable financial core that helped London become one of the most trusted centers for global trade. English common law, widely respected and adopted across the empire, created a legal environment that businesses, investors, and governments relied on. Over the next 2 centuries, as the British Empire expanded across Asia, Africa, the Americas, and the Caribbean, money from all corners of the world flowed through London. Even when the empire dissolved in the mid-20th century, the financial architecture Britain built did not collapse. Instead, it adapted. Many territories linked to Britain did not become fully independent nations. Instead, they became crown dependencies like Jersey, Guernsey, and the Isle of Man, or overseas territories like the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Gibraltar, and the British Virgin Islands. These places created extremely low-tax environments with strong secrecy laws, purposefully designed to attract global wealth. They offered no corporate tax, no capital gains tax, and minimal reporting requirements. What made them unusual is that, while they operated their own tax laws, they remained deeply connected to Britain in legal, political, and financial ways. Behind the scenes, London functioned as their administrative brain. Offshore companies incorporated in the Cayman Islands might legally exist on paper there, but the lawyers writing the contracts, the bankers managing the money, and the accountants building tax structures are almost always sitting in offices in London. This is why the Cayman Islands has become home to around 75% of the world's hedge funds, and why the British Virgin Islands, which has a population barely above 30,000, has more than 350,000 registered companies. These are not traditional businesses. They are shell companies, holding companies, investment vehicles, and trusts designed to move money with minimal tax and minimal visibility. This network, known by economists as the British offshore financial system, manages more wealth than any other offshore structure on Earth. English law plays a pivotal role in this system. One of the most powerful tools is trust law. Trusts allow wealthy individuals to legally separate legal ownership from beneficial ownership. This means a billionaire can put assets, homes, yachts, shares, or cash into a trust and technically no longer own them, even though they still benefit from them. This makes it incredibly difficult for tax authorities, investigators, or courts to trace wealth. Trusts have existed in England since the Middle Ages, originally created so knights leaving for battle could protect their property. But in the modern world, these ancient tools have become extremely effective weapons of tax minimization. By the 20th century, globalization and rising international wealth created new demand for these structures, and London was perfectly positioned to supply them. The next turning point came in the 1980s. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's Big Bang deregulation in 1986 removed long-standing restrictions on banks, allowed foreign banks to operate more freely, and opened London to an enormous wave of global capital. Within a decade, London became the largest center for foreign exchange trading on the planet, a title it still holds, handling around 1/3 of all global currency transactions. With money pouring in, London's financial industry grew into a powerhouse supported by lawyers, wealth managers, accountants, auditors, tax advisors, hedge funds, and investment banks. Many of these institutions specialized in building elaborate corporate structures that used offshore jurisdictions to reduce tax liabilities for multinational companies and wealthy individuals. Around the same time, Britain introduced one of the world's most controversial tax policies, the non-domiciled resident regime. Under this system, wealthy foreigners living in Britain could avoid paying tax on their overseas income, as long as they did not bring that income into the UK. This turned London into a magnet for the global elite. Over the years, more than 68,000 individuals used non-dom status, including aristocrats, billionaires, oligarchs, and wealthy families from across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Many of these individuals also used offshore companies in British territories to further shield their wealth. This created a financial ecosystem in which London became not just a place to live, but a strategic base for global tax planning. One of the most unusual and important pieces of this puzzle Is the City of London Corporation the local authority governing London's financial district? It is the oldest continuous municipal government in the world, with its own police force, its own voting system, and unique privileges in Parliament. The City of London's representatives meet with government officials more frequently than any other lobbying group, and this influence has helped maintain light-touch regulation, which encourages international capital to flow through London with minimal barriers. This structure allows the financial industry to shape policies in ways that protect its competitive advantage. As a result, London developed a reputation as the place where global wealth could be managed with sophistication, discretion, and advantageous tax planning. The scale of this system is enormous. Studies have shown that around 40% of global foreign direct investment flows through jurisdictions linked to the UK. The entire British offshore network collectively manages an estimated $10 trillion in financial assets. London's law firms specialize in incorporating companies in the Cayman Islands, structuring trusts in Jersey, and managing wealth through banks in Bermuda. The offshore world, although physically scattered across small islands, is effectively coordinated from within London's financial district. Several major leaks across the last decade revealed just how integral London is to the global offshore system. The Panama Papers in 2016 and the Paradise Papers in 2017 contained millions of documents showing how politicians, celebrities, corporations, and billionaires hid their money through offshore accounts. A substantial portion of these structures were connected to British territories or set up by firms based in London. Investigations also showed that more than £100 billion worth of London property is owned by offshore companies, allowing buyers to avoid taxes, conceal ownership, and move money across borders undetected. This is why London's luxury housing market behaves differently from the rest of the country. It is influenced by global wealth rather than local demand. The term Londongrad emerged over the years because of the large number of wealthy Russian individuals who moved their money and sometimes themselves into London using offshore structures. And it isn't just Russians. Wealth from China, the Gulf states, Africa, and South Asia all flows through London's offshore pipelines. Even when governments attempt to crack down, the financial structures are so complex and the legal frameworks so old that enforcing transparency becomes incredibly difficult. Despite pressure for reform, Britain has strong economic incentives to maintain this system. Financial services make up over 10% of the UK's GDP. London is responsible for a large portion of national tax revenue, high-income jobs, and international investment. If Britain were to fully dismantle its tax haven network, analysts warn that global wealth could quickly shift to rival centers like Singapore, Dubai, Zurich, or New York. Britain's economy depends heavily on maintaining London's attractiveness as a global wealth hub, which includes keeping its offshore network accessible. But while this system benefits the financial sector, it also creates real consequences for ordinary British citizens. When multinational companies and wealthy individuals avoid paying tax through offshore jurisdictions, the government collects less revenue. This can result in higher taxes on workers, lower investment in public services, and a deeper divide between the rich and poor. It also inflates London's property market, making it increasingly unaffordable for average families while investors treat homes as safe assets to store offshore wealth. Inequality widens, and the tax burden becomes tilted toward everyday people. Although transparency has slowly improved, with new laws requiring some property ownership to be publicly declared, the changes have been limited. The offshore system is deeply embedded, legally protected, and further supported by an industry of accountants, lawyers, and financial consultants who design increasingly sophisticated structures to stay ahead of regulation. At its core, London became the world's tax haven capital not because it is a low-tax jurisdiction itself, but because it sits at the center of a global network of low-tax territories and complex legal structures. It is the headquarters of a system that channels trillions through invisible pathways, built on English law, colonial legacies, deregulated finance, and political protection. This system continues to shape Britain's economy, global finance, and wealth inequality. If you found this detailed financial deep dive valuable and eye-opening, please consider liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to British Economic Archives. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories about Britain's economic past and present. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.